are talking Dinosaur World, and this one is directed by Ryan Bolgart. Now, this is a Chinese production. Now, Ryan Bolgart actually directed a movie called Jurassic Games in 2018, and this is actually a more or less a kind of reimagining or remake of his previous film. So if you've seen Jurassic Games, it's kind of a very similar concept with a few kind of tweaks. So I'll be talking about kind of both movies, and both of them directed by Bolgart. This one obviously mainly for the Chinese audience. So the story of this one is that there's a video game company which is promoting this brand new kind of virtual reality dinosaur game, and they've picked a bunch of kind of random people to participate in this kind of debut event, I suppose, for the launch of this game, and the winner gets a kind of a $5 million prize, and the winner is whoever is left standing either gets the prize themselves or a share of it if there's multiple people outstanding. And players are pitted against each other and kind of variety of virtual dinosaurs within this kind of VR world. And you know, within this we're going to get team ups. We have the danger of these kind of dinosaurs, and obviously the other players themselves, some of which team up and some of which kind of fight amongst themselves. In the original movie, Jurassic Games, it had a little bit of a different kind of setup. In that one, we had basically people on death row were kind of given the chance to live if they survive the game. Whilst here people are, in this movie, Dinosaur World, people choose to kind of go into this willingly with the hope of winning this particular prize. So what'll happen, you'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let us discuss what I think works in Dinosaur World. So, I actually quite enjoyed Jurassic Games. It's one of the better B movies that have come out in recent years, and I did enjoy this one as well. So, a few things that I enjoyed with this movie. I do think we have this kind of cast of characters, and we get kind of different kind of factions within this, of these people kind of teaming up, and we get a little bit of characterization for the majority of certainly the Chinese players here, and we get little kind of groups, and I think my kind of favourite grouping, and probably the main protagonists of the movie, are these two kind of guys who are a bit dorky and stuff, but I quite like their kind of chemistry together. I actually thought they kind of come across as like, you know, just kind of nice, genuine and average kind of people who end up kind of being kind of quite friendly and stuff, but are not particularly well versed in, you know, monster hunting or anything like that, and I quite enjoyed this. But then we get other little kind of like team ups and kind of rivalries within the games themselves. So I kind of quite like some of the kind of the interpersonal kind of drama that this movie actually kind of, you know, makes our kind of players have. Now, one of the concepts of this movie, which was true of the Jurassic Games as well, was this movie you have a kind of an excuse for CGI dinosaurs. So, because these dinosaurs are meant to be CGI creations, they're not meant to be real dinosaurs that these kind of players are fighting against. So you have that conceit there, where, you know, if the dinosaur CGI looks a little bit ropey, it has an explainer in universe, because they're not meant to be real dinosaurs. They're meant to be virtual representations. But I gotta say, I think at least I would say 50% of the time, the dinosaur CGI actually looks pretty good. In particular, I would say that's kind of the T-Rex, and to a degree, I think the Triceratops look pretty good, I have to say, for the majority of shots within that. But even when they don't look particularly good, I say you have that in-universe reason why you can kind of be a little bit forgiving with it, because it actually has this kind of built into it. And I would have liked the movie to have been a little bit more self-aware and maybe have a little bit of reference. We still need to kind of like, you know, touch up the CGI or whatever on the dinosaurs to make them a little bit more realistic. I think that would have been a little bit more fun, because a lot of these kind of like lower budget movies, or certainly Chinese kind of monster movies, the CGI is never particularly kind of strong. And I think it would have been benefited from having a little bit of self-referential commentary in that, but there you kind of go. We have quite a lot of action in this movie, both from the kind of the dinosaur attacks themselves, but also kind of unscrupulous human players who are going to want to take out the kind of the competition and stuff like that, and I kind of quite liked some of the kind of the sequences and that. There's a little bit of kind of nod to kind of gaming culture and things like that, which I thought was pretty good. And the movie is, I gotta be honest with you, unintentionally funny at sometimes. And I'm gonna come on to this again, maybe why it doesn't work, but on the plus side, we have all these kind of dramatic sequences where, you know, for example, we have a couple of players that might team up, and one of them kind of gets killed in universe, in the actual game. And then the other kind of like contestants like, no, and kind of all dramatic. Then we just see the kind of like the next shot is the guy that's died, taking off the VR headset going, damn. So it kind of really undercuts that kind of drama, but at the same time it's pretty hilarious because it makes the previous theme seem very kind of silly and melodramatic. And I gotta say, it's kind of funny in some ways like that. So yeah, it's quite a fast-paced movie. It's not overly long. I do suspect this may have been re-edited for Western audiences, particularly in the end. I will say, because there's sort of characters that seem to just disappear, and the end seems a little kind of like trimmed down, I think, but I'm not quite sure. That's just my speculation. What doesn't work? Okay, so I'm going to kind of just, again, touch on some of the things I've mentioned, but in kind of the opposite way. So, yeah, the tension in this movie is, unfortunately, somewhat undercut by the setup. So, in the movie Jurassic Games, the whole point was that they're death row inmates, you know, in this game that die in real life if they die in the game, which actually gave the movie stakes. And it gave a genuine reason why people wanted to survive in that particular game. Here, if they die, they just take off the headset and kind of like, ah, damn it, I've lost. So there's not a hell of a lot of stakes in this movie. You know, you have this kind of juxtaposition against these what are meant to be dramatic moments when someone does die, and we kind of see their corpse on the ground, and like their friends are, oh my god, and then we have the next sequence where they're just taking their VR helmet off. It's a bit silly. It's just a little bit silly. And then also, I think with this particular version compared to, say, Jurassic Games, is the element of pain. You know, how our players, how much pain are they kind of experiencing? Because in the Jurassic Games movie, which is a 2018 original, you know, if someone gets injured, it's going to kind of cripple them and, you know, affect their playing ability. But the whole point is they still have to try and survive, because it's a life or death kind of TV kind of situation. But in this one, if we're meant to believe this is like a commercial game that people are buying, how much pain are we really gonna, you know, are you really gonna want to have to an actual player? And the other thing that I would compare this to the Jurassic Games, which is, let's say, the original movie, which this is based on. In that movie, there was also a kind of a B plot with people, you know, in opposition of this kind of game, giving all this kind of demonstrations about how it was inhumane and how, you know, you're basically kind of watching people get kind of executed live on screen for entertainment and things like that, and it gave it this kind of political kind of subtext. I mean, because of this setup, there's none of that in this movie, so it is just more of this kind of the straight action film. So it lacks a little bit of the depth, I think, than the original kind of Jurassic Games had. I'm making it sound like Jurassic Games was this kind of masterpiece, and I'd really enjoyed it for a B movie, but, you know, it is still a B movie. But this one, I think, is the whole setup changes the kind of dynamic a little bit. Going back to some of the stuff I've said, the CGI in places do look a little rough. In particular, there's some really kind of ropey green screen, and there's kind of like a sequence that involves this kind of truck, this kind of Jeep with a kind of a machine gun on the back. It looks kind of like, really kind of like, quite uncomfortable green screen kind of effects there. And some of the kind of the acting, and obviously again this is dubbed, the version I've watched was dubbed for Western audiences, comes across particularly kind of hammy and kind of cheesy. And again, I think this looks like it's been kind of like slightly recut for Western audiences, because there are some kind of like awkward kind of edits and stuff in there. So overall, I think this is still quite an enjoyable movie. I have to say, I still kind of quite liked it, and I really like the 2018 Jurassic Games kind of version of this. But I don't think it's as strong as that, because the stakes are less, and I think it lacks some of the kind of the depth of that one. But nonetheless, this is still a fun movie. Probably a little bit more dinosaurs on screen than the original, I would say, and maybe we had some better characters in some respects. but I still think this is not quite as good as the Jurassic games movie, but still quite a fun movie. And I have got to say, for the pantheon of kind of Chinese monster movies that we've seen, this is an above average one. It does have some of the kind of the cliches that we see in a lot of these kind of Chinese monster movies. All the kind of Caucasian characters are just cannon fodder, and things like this, or either cannon fodder and or bad guys and things like that, and don't have a lot of kind of screen time and stuff. It's the Chinese kind of film industry. There you go. Anyway, so for me this is a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.